This is the podium at Takasu Circuit after the Kei Car Championship had come to an end. And that awkward white guy standing there with his thumb up? That's me. Why am I standing there so awkwardly? Probably because I've never stood on a podium before. Probably because prior to this event, I had never raced on a track before. And yet there I am, standing with a team, holding a trophy after a championship, wondering how it is I'd managed to get myself into that position. Battling harsh weather conditions, far from ideal car conditions, and a sizable language barrier, this is the story about how I entered my first championship race in Japan. Our story begins a little over a week before the race. I'm sitting in a restaurant with my friend, and he says, "Hey, there's a race coming up. Are you interested?" And I say, "What kind of race is it?" And he says, "Oh, it's an endurance race." And I'm like, "Okay." And he said, "And it's for Kei cars." And I'm like, "Okay, Kei cars are cool. I like Kei cars. You know, this could be fun." And I thought he was alluding to the cappuccino. He then told me that, no, the team already had a car they were competing in with the championship. I could just go along and drive the car. Even better, I didn't even need my car to be functional. And apparently this Auto was quite a fun car. So I said, yeah, I'd probably be interested. He then told me that it's a weekend event, a 2-day event, Saturday and a Sunday. I was a little less keen because, well, I wasn't sure about the details of a hotel and how to get to where it was because it was about a 3.5-hour drive away. But I said, yeah, I'm interested. When is it? And he says, "Oh, it's the weekend after next." And I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty close. I don't know if I can, make arrangements before then. I'll have to have a think about it." And he says, "Oh, you need to let me know today because I need to tell the team captain that you're joining and he needs your details of your name, your date of birth, where you live, and, to literally quote my friend, your mummy's contact details." I mean, English isn't his first language, but I thought that was quite funny. Naturally, much towards my attitude with pretty much everything I've done in Japan so far, I simply said yes, and the plans were in motion. So in that week leading up to the race, I'll be honest, I literally didn't know anything about the race. I didn't know what time it started, I didn't know what time we were leaving, I didn't know if I needed to bring anything particular or bring anyone with me. It wasn't until the weekly meeting that we have on a Friday that the team assembled for the first time, and I got introduced to all of the details at, well, almost the exact last minute if we're being honest, because I got told that the next morning at 5 AM we would be leaving. Now, due to my terrible sleeping pattern, I got about 2 hours sleep before that 5 AM departure. In addition to this, I totally forgot to film the time-lapse on the GoPro, so here's the only picture I took of my trip, me getting some high-octane fuel at about the halfway mark. It's a shame I didn't film it either because the sunrise really was quite pretty and we followed the coastal road all the way up to Fukui. Although, as we got closer, it did start to rain and conditions did seem to worsen, which gave me a little bit of a hint towards what my weekend was gonna look like. We arrive at Takasu Circuit with the rain still falling. Some of our teammates get to practicing straight away and the rest of us wait our turn to go to the drivers' meeting. Once it was time, we all entered the lecture hall and are given 2 pieces of paper. One for the rules of the circuit and the other for the rules of the championship. Of course, all entirely in Japanese. Now let me be clear, my Japanese level is about elementary, somewhere between an N4 and an N3 on the JLPT. But I'm not going to lie to you, I couldn't read these sheets in their entirety. Hell, I could probably only read just the outlines of it. But it wasn't too much of a problem because thankfully there was a lecture that explained it all, and my listening is much better than my reading ability. So after the drivers' meeting and a couple of my teammates getting some practice, eventually my turn would come to enter the track for the first time. And not gonna lie, I was pretty scared. In fact, I don't even need to tell you in the voiceover what I was thinking, because, well, I mean, I literally said it to the team captain just as we were about to roll out. So I've never driven this car before, and I'm about to take it out on a racetrack. What could possibly go wrong? And I wasn't kidding. I had never driven that car before. Hell, I had never even sat in that car before, and yet I was about to pull out of the pits onto a racetrack for the first time. I spent the first couple of laps trying to get used to the car. The accelerator, the brake, the steering, and the fact that it was front-wheel drive. To be perfectly honest with you, I have pretty limited experience in front-wheel drive cars, and definitely no experience racing them. so this was all pretty new territory to me. After a couple laps though, I started to get the hang of it, and I started, well, going quite a lot faster, much to the surprise of my captain sitting next to me. The team captain gave me some good advice while driving, and after a few laps, we head in. After which he asked me, "How much track experience do you have?" To which I told him, "It's my first time." He was very surprised by that. He said, "Really, your first time?" And I said, "Yeah, well, it's my first time racing on a track, yeah. And really, it's my first time racing a FF, or front engine front wheel drive car." To which he was pretty shocked. He said, "You were very fast and I was very impressed." I obviously said, "Thank you very much, I am surprised to hear that." After which he informed me that I had actually pulled out the fastest lap of the day, despite the terrible conditions. He then informed me that tomorrow I would be racing in the qualifying race, the race that determined what grid slot we started at, which had me pretty worried. It was a lot of pressure on me. I mean, it's the first time I've ever raced, and I'm in a foreign country, in a team I've never raced with before, and here I am racing qualifying. Like, it was just a crazy scenario. The day comes to a close, and it's time for us to all head back to our quote-unquote hotel. Well, all of us except for one team member, whose parents happened to live in that town, and they were lucky enough to get to go back to their home and sleep in their own bed, and get a lovely home-cooked meal, and have a nice hot shower, and we were definitely not jealous. Anyway, the rest of the team went out for some dinner, and then we packed it in for the night at our hotel, which, by the way, was not a hotel. It was an internet cafe. Some of you might be familiar with Japanese culture and internet cafes, but for those that don't know, basically it's a cafe that you're meant to use to, use the internet, use a computer, watch TV shows, play games, read manga, etc. But you can technically sleep in there, and to be honest with you, they are pretty well catered to do that for reasons that I won't go into. This place was really cool though. I mean, not only was it cheap because it was an internet cafe, but it offered all-you-can-eat ice cream, all-you-can-drink soft drink, tea, water. They had a really nice shower, and honestly, the room I was in was pretty big. I could fully stretch out laying on the floor, no problems. So after a nice hot shower, a bunch of free ice cream, I packed it in for the night. To be honest with you, I got a pretty good sleep. I mean, I expected the experience to be pretty crappy, and I was going to pencil it in as a Japanese cultural experience of sleeping in an internet cafe. But to be perfectly honest with you, I was pretty tired. I probably could have slept anywhere. Naturally, we had another early start the next day. I got up feeling pretty fresh though. I got myself a free coffee, and the rest of the members joined us, and off we went back to Takasu Circuit. We arrive at Takasu on day 2, and instantly I got very excited. Granted, it was raining very heavily, but I was excited for a whole nother reason. And that's because there were a bunch of cool cars in the car park. I'm talking Supras, I'm talking Chasers, I'm talking cool little Kei cars, but most importantly, there was a red cappuccino there, which had me very excited. So excited that of course, naturally I had to park next to it and take a photo. After which I even had the opportunity to talk to the owner, who was very excited to talk to another cappuccino enthusiast, and I think the last thing he expected was a foreign exchange student to be talking to him about Suzuki cappuccinos, and the engine it has inside of it, and the different turbo he had, and that his front intercooler come from an R33 Skyline. But nonetheless, he was very excited, and I was very excited too, and we had a really good chat. Cool cars in the car park aside though, we were here to race, and we got to practicing right away. After the practice session, there was the mandatory inspection of every vehicle, obviously including ours, to which we ran into a little bit of an issue. You see, we brought 2 sets of wheels to race on with the car. One set to practice on, and one to race on. Now our practice set was very worn. I mean, we had them worn to... We had cord showing, alright? We had cord showing. And we put on the set that we planned to race on. However, the officials weren't too happy with them. Reason being, the wheels were slightly fouling the guards, meaning that we wouldn't be allowed to use those wheels during the race, which left us with the unfortunate option of having to race on our practice wheels that were well and truly past their use by. With the inspection out of the way, the people running the event had the final announcement, in which they got rained on the whole time, and then we were sent out to do qualifying in the very same rain, and I was a little bit nervous, but I was optimistic. After yesterday's performance, I thought I had this. I had my little warm-up lap after merging on, and then the real laps began, to which I threw the car instantly into a spin at my first turn. Granted, I wasn't very disheartened after this spin, as I knew I only had a 10-minute window to punch out laps, so I straightened the car up and got straight back to it, punching out lap after lap, trying to improve in areas, and, well, I was trying to get the best time I possibly could. After the 10-minute session was up, I pulled into the pits, feeling fairly confident about my laps, but a little disheartened that the conditions of both the tyres and the weather were far from ideal, but I felt I had done okay. Turns out I had done pretty okay. Once the results were in, the team captain come up, and he said, "Congratulations, we're the fastest in our division. Yay!" Which honestly actually wasn't all that impressive because there were only 5 cars in our division, one of the cars didn't even get to qualify, so I only beat 3 other cars. So we were pretty well at the back of the grid, but hey, I was fastest in my division, okay? I'm taking that win. After this, our team captain went over the game plan. Our whole strategy relied on the weather becoming better throughout the day. We knew the rain would go away towards the end of the day and that conditions would eventually dry up, so our whole strategy was to put our fastest drivers at the end of the race. The team captain then informed me that I would be the final driver for the day, so once again, all pressure was on me. Shortly after this, all the cars were sent out to line up on the grid. And I must say, this was a pretty exciting moment. I mean, all the cars were out there, all the people were out there, we were all lining up, it was all very exciting. Once the cars were lined up, they started moving around the track. Now the whole plan was that they would be in a formation lap for a couple laps, and then eventually the checkered flag would go, and everyone would start in a rolling start situation. So after everyone was all formed up, the checkered flag was given, and the race began. The race would go on for 3 hours. Each driver would drive for roughly 30 minutes, give or take. Eventually, at the end of the day came, and it was my time to shine. Thankfully, the weather truly had gotten better, the road conditions were perfect, so out I went. And I must say, there were a lot of cars on the track. There were 35 cars towed, and as soon as I got out there, all the fastest cars were met up with me, and I had to get right out of the way straight away. This was truly exciting. While I did have to get out the way of the faster cars, I was able to overtake quite a few of the slower cars, and this was a lot of fun. My team was on the side, cheering every single time I passed a car, and it was all very exciting. Until eventually, I caught up to car number 70. Now, I'm not going to talk too much crap about driving on a track, because I mean, after all, it was my first time on a track. But in my opinion, this driver was quite dangerous. He was one of the slower drivers out there, but he didn't like to stick to the side of the track, which made it very dangerous when all of the fast cars would catch up and have to overtake him on the inside, outside, inside, outside. It was pandemonium, especially in the tight areas of the track. I mean, it's pretty hard to hear maybe in the recordings, but through some sections I was going, this is dangerous, this is dangerous, this is terrifying, because, I mean, it was dangerous and it was terrifying. I mean, maybe he was doing the right thing, but when all the fast cars were coming up, I would get out the way like I was told to do so. There were quite a few instances once the fast cars had passed that I thought, hey, now it's my opportunity to be able to pass him too. But every time I'd go to pass him, he would just do some very random things. I mean, for example, on this straight, normally everyone was following the line here on the left, so I thought, oh, I'll take him on the inside. So I'm on the inside, and next minute, he almost hits me on the outside. It was so random. But anyway, I'm not going to nag about car number 70's driving ability. I still had a wonderful time regardless. But as soon as I come in the pits, my whole team was like, what was car 70's problem? And I was like, I know! Eventually, the race comes to an end. The checkered flag is waved, and we start our cooldown lap. After which, we enter the pits to what was honestly one of the most incredible scenes I had ever witnessed. All of the teams were standing at the edge of their pits, cheering everyone on, clapping in congratulations. All of the spectators, everyone was there. It was just a magical moment. It was like a hero's welcome. It had felt like we'd just won the F1 or something. It was truly incredible. After which, all the cars had to line up and be inspected again to make sure there were no illegal tamperings during the race. Shortly after this, we got our second hailstorm for the day in what I can only describe as the worst hail I have ever seen in my life. Seriously, it was incredible. They were massive hailstones, it was coming down hard, it was crazy. Shortly after which, though, the weather did stop and the awards ceremony commenced. During the ceremony, all the teams as spectators stood around the podium as they announced the winners of each class and each division. Everyone was very excited to see who had won, people went up, had their speeches, received their trophy and prizes, you know, the normal affair. That was until it come over the intercom. Our team, Kyoto University, had won the championship of the university division with total points. It was insane. None of us expected this at all. We were all looking at each other like, hold up, that's our team. Hang on, we need to get up there. And at the last minute, we all got up there, myself included. Hence why I was standing there so awkwardly, because this come at a shock to everyone. I mean, we didn't expect to win anything. Now, let me be clear. I didn't win this trophy. My team won this trophy. In fact, it wasn't even just my team on that day. It was the other teams at the other races as well. Granted, some of these members were in those races as well, but I wasn't. So let me be very clear. This was far from my trophy. I had simply participated my little bit towards winning the trophy overall. After the main ceremony, there was a group rock, paper, scissors in which other prizes would be given out. Unfortunately, we didn't win any major prizes, but here's a picture of me pretty chuffed about winning some instant noodles. After that, it was time to pack up and head all the way back to Kyoto. But this time, I actually remembered to put the time lapse on. Unfortunately, at this point it was pretty dark and the footage was pretty crap, but hey, at least I remembered this time. Overall, the experience was incredible. I will never forget that weekend, I think, for the rest of my life. I mean, we bonded as a team, we had such a great time, and for quite a few of us, it was our first competitive performance. So to be able to get out there and have a good time and not get in an accident and somehow end up with a podium at the end of the day, I mean, what more can you ask for? But anyway, that concludes the story about how I competed for the first time on a racetrack in Japan, in a foreign car, with a foreign language, and somehow my team scored a podium. Thank you very much for following me along. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you had a good time, make sure you chuck that like button a hit, because it really helps out small channels like mine. I've got heaps more stuff in the pipeline, assuming I can get my cappuccino fixed, which right now honestly is proving to be quite difficult and I don't really want to talk about it, so let's not talk about it. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.